Hello everyone. Today I will continue telling you the love story of Tu Sam and the police officer Lee. I hope you enjoy the video. After the day Owen handed back the large inheritance, Tu Sam didn't feel overwhelmed the way people might expect. There was no choking sense of joy, no rush to dream of luxury. Instead, when everything settled, a very clear thought rose in her heart. For the first time in many years, she had the right to choose for herself. That afternoon the house was quiet. Sunlight slanted through the window, falling across the wooden table where Tu Sam sat alone. In front of her lay a blank sheet of paper and an old pencil. She twirled the pencil between her fingers and smiled faintly, as if remembering something she had hidden away for a long time. When she was younger, Tu Sam had once dreamed of learning how to bake. Not to open a big shop, not even to think about business. Just the feeling of standing in a warm kitchen, kneading dough, listening to the steady hum of the oven, and watching cakes rise, carrying a simple kind of joy. But life had pulled her in another direction. Survival, endurance, worries. That dream was folded away and tucked deep into a corner. So deep that she herself thought she had forgotten it. Now things were different. Tu Sam bent down and began to write. The lines appeared slowly but firmly. Look for a vocational class. Learn the basics first. Study seriously, don't rush. Do it for love, not pressure. She paused and reread each line. Her heart suddenly fluttered like a child about to do something she had long wished for. She picked up her phone, searched for baking classes, compared schedules, tuition fees, locations. Each new piece of information made her more excited. She even imagined herself wearing an apron, hands dusted with flour, the smell of cake filling the kitchen. Then she suddenly stopped. Lee. She looked toward the door, where the sound of keys usually echoed every evening. She knew the first thing she wanted to do wasn't to register right away. It was to share this with Lee. She wanted to tell him about this dream, not to ask for permission, but because she wanted him to be the first to know. Tu Sam pictured the evening. Lee coming home after his shift, still in his familiar uniform, traces of fatigue on his face. She would pour him a glass of water, sit across from him, and say slowly but excitedly, I want to learn a trade. I want to learn how to bake. This time I want to do it seriously. Just thinking about it made her heart feel warm. She didn't know how Lee would react, surprise, silence, or a smile. But Tu Sam believed he would understand. Because more than anyone, Lee had witnessed her living for years only for others, never for herself. Outside, the sky gradually darkened. Tu Sam folded the paper and carefully placed it in the drawer, as if storing away a promise. She stood up and began preparing dinner, her heart light. Tonight, when Lee came home, she would tell him. And from that moment, a new chapter, calm, genuine, would begin. It was fully dark when the familiar sound of keys came from the door. Lee stepped inside, still his usual composed self, carrying the scent of night air and the fatigue of a long shift. Tu Sam looked up. She had been waiting for this moment all evening. You're home. Her voice was gentle, but her eyes were brighter than usual. Lee nodded, took off his shoes, and set his cap on the table. As he washed his hands, he asked, Did you stay home all day today? Yes. Tu Sam hesitated for a beat, then took a deep breath. There's something I want to tell you. Lee turned back, seeing her standing there with her hands clasped together. A familiar posture whenever she was about to say something important. He pulled out a chair and sat across from her, his voice lower. Go on. Tu Sam looked at him for a moment, then smiled, unable to hide her excitement. I want to learn a trade. I want to learn how to bake. Lee froze slightly, but only for an instant. He didn't ask why, nor did he look worried. He just tilted his head, looking at her more intently, as if listening not only to her words but to what lay beneath them. It's something I've dreamed of for a long time, Tu Sam continued, her voice low but steady. Before, I always thought I didn't have the means or the time. But now, I want to try. I want to do something for myself. Lee was silent for a few seconds. Then he let out a soft laugh, not dismissive but relieved, as if he had been waiting to hear this for a long time. I thought you might never say it, he said. But I'm glad you did. Tu Sam was a little surprised. You don't think I'm being unrealistic? Lee shook his head immediately. No, not at all. He leaned back in his chair, his voice slow and warm. You have a dream, and you're serious about it. That alone is something worth respecting. Sam felt her nose sting. Lee thought for a moment, then seemed to remember something. Oh, I might be able to help you with something. She looked up. What is it? I have an old friend. His wife teaches baking classes. The place focuses on solid basics. No pressure to open a shop or make money right away. He looked at her. His support unmistakable. If you want, I can introduce you. You can learn slowly, build a strong foundation. Sam's eyes widened. Really? Lee nodded. Really? I think that place would suit you. At that moment, Sam couldn't hold it in anymore. She laughed and then tears followed, joy mixed with relief. For so many years, she had been used to carrying everything on her own, deciding on her own, enduring on her own. For the first time, someone stood beside her and said, "Go ahead. I'm here." "Thank you," she whispered. Lee didn't say anything more. He simply reached out and held her hand tightly, a handhold that promised nothing grand, but steady enough for Sam to believe that the road ahead, though new, would no longer be lonely. Outside the window, yellow light spilled onto the porch. In the small kitchen, the smell of hot rice filled the air, and an old dream, after many years, had finally been called by its name again. That morning, Lee took Sam out early. The road was still dotted with dew, the streets not yet crowded. Lee drove slowly without turning on the radio. Inside the car, there was only the steady sound of the engine and a comfortable silence. Sam sat beside him, hands resting on her back, her heart a mix of excitement and nervousness, like the first day of school after many years. "We're here," Lee said as the car stopped in front of an old two-story house with a small sign out front. Handmade baking class. Not fancy, not flashy, but through the glass door, Sam saw warm yellow lights and neatly arranged wooden tables. Her heart began to beat faster. Inside the classroom, others were already there. A young woman in her 20s, hair tied up, scrolling on her phone. A middle-aged woman with a fuller figure and glasses, carefully taking notes. In the corner, an older man with graying hair, absent-mindedly smoothing his brand-new apron, looking a bit shy. Sam paused. So she wasn't the only one starting over. Lee stood behind her and said softly, "Go in. Everyone here is starting again." She nodded and stepped inside. The lesson began with very basic things. Weighing flour, separating eggs, preheating the oven. It sounded simple, but when she actually did it, Sam realized it had been a long time since she had learned something completely new. She poured too much flour. The scale tipped off balance. She cracked the eggs unevenly. The yolks broke and spread messily. Her hands trembled slightly, not from the work but from unfamiliarity. The smell of melting butter filled the room. Rich, warm, comforting. Yet Sam felt her throat tighten. When the first cake went into the oven, she stood watching through the glass, full of hope. 20 minutes later, the cake came out, collapsed. Not burnt, not completely ruined, but clearly a failure. Sam stood still. Around her, some people laughed it off, others started a new batch. For her, an old feeling resurfaced, one she had known for years. "I'm not suited for this. Maybe I should stop." She took off her gloves, her hands still dusted with flour. The flour dried, clinging to her skin, rough and uncomfortable. She looked down and suddenly felt tired. Maybe I shouldn't have started. At that moment, Lee's voice echoed clearly in her mind, low, calm, unmistakable. "You don't have to be good right away. You just have to not give up." Sam closed her eyes for a second. She took a deep breath. The smell of butter, flour, and fresh cake mixed together. Real, grounded, alive. She put her gloves back on and returned to her station. This time she worked more slowly, measuring each spoon of flour, wiping her hands carefully. No rush, no comparison. The second cake wasn't perfect, but it stood. When the class ended, Sam stepped outside. Lee was still waiting by the tree in front, as if he had never left. Seeing her, he asked, "How was it?" Sam smiled, a tired but genuine smile. "The cake collapsed, but I didn't quit." Lee nodded, a quiet satisfaction in his eyes. "That's enough." On the way home, Sam leaned back against the seat, feeling lighter than she had in the morning. She knew she had just crossed something small but important. It wasn't about learning how to bake. It was about daring to start again, and not turning away when things got hard. That evening, Sam brought the collapsed cake home. She placed the box on the kitchen table and opened it slowly, as if afraid of hurting the cake again. It wasn't burnt or raw, just much flatter than she had imagined. Looking at it, she let out a soft laugh, part self-mockery, part wistfulness. Lee came in from the other room and stopped when he saw the cake. Today's cake? Yeah, Sam nodded. My first one. A failure. Lee pulled out a chair and sat down without asking anything else. He took a knife, cut a neat slice, and tasted it. Sam stood across from him, hands clasped together, her heart beating even faster than when she stood in front of the oven. Lee chewed slowly, swallowed, then said, "It's not bakery good, but it's edible." Sam's eyes widened. Really? Yeah. Lee nodded. Not overly sweet. Not greasy. It just didn't rise. It wasn't praise, but it was enough to make Sam breathe easier. She cut another slice, this time for herself. When she bit into it, she realized the cake wasn't perfect, but it was something she had made with her own hands. The feeling was strange. Very real. That night, they ate cake for dessert. No one said much, but the small kitchen felt warmer than usual. In the days that followed, Sam attended class regularly. She wasn't a fast learner. Some days she had to remake the same cake 3 times. Some days she filled entire pages with notes, yet her hands still trembled when she began. But what was different was she didn't quit. She grew accustomed to the smell of butter, to weighing flour slowly, even to the small daily failures. Today's cake might rise a little more than yesterday's. Tomorrow's frosting might be smoother than today's. Very slow but steady. In the evenings, Sam often brought cakes home. Some were better, some still clumsy. Lee was always the first to taste them. He never criticized, never exaggerated praise. Just honest comments. Better today. Smoother today. Today this could be sold. Hearing that, Sam would smile and jot down a few more notes in her notebook. She didn't know that during that time, Lee was also doing something else. Quietly, silently, without letting her know. During rare midday breaks between shifts, Lee began paying more attention to small storefronts along the streets. One-story houses with wide glass fronts. Quiet corners with steady foot traffic. He asked around, checking which places used to be shops which were up for transfer. He wasn't in a hurry. Lee knew Sam was still learning, and he didn't want to pressure her. But whenever he saw her diligently wiping tables, testing frosting, writing down every small mistake, a very clear thought formed in his mind. She can do this. It's just a matter of time. One afternoon, Lee stopped his car in front of a small shop at a quiet street corner. Not big, but tidy. Sunlight slanted across the glass front, enough to imagine a display case inside. A few small tables, the smell of cake drifting out every morning. He stood there for a long time. He didn't call, didn't take photos to send. He just saved the address in his phone. Slowly, he thought, wait until she's ready. That night, Sam brought home another new cake. It had risen more evenly, the surface no longer cracked. Lee tasted it and nodded. This one's much better. Sam smiled, her eyes lighting up. I feel like I'm really improving. Lee looked at her for a long moment, then said softly, yeah, I can see it too. Outside, the city lights flickered on. In the small kitchen, a dream was quietly growing. Unhurried, unshowy, but strong enough to wait for the day it would step into the light. The days of preparing for the shop passed faster than Sam had imagined. The small storefront on a quiet street corner gradually took shape. In the mornings, sunlight filtered through the glass, spilling onto the tiled floor still fragrant from cleaning. In the afternoons, a gentle breeze drifted through, carrying a very new feeling. The feeling of a place that was about to be called her own. Sam arrived early every day. She wiped down each shelf, arranged every plate, adjusted the position of the display case to sit just right at eye level. No longer clumsy like during her first lessons, her movements were now slow but steady, deliberate. Each time she placed her hand on the countertop, she paused for a beat, as if to make sure everything was real. Lee came later, usually toward the end of the afternoon. He brought very small things. New light bulbs, a few wooden chairs, a menu board with no writing yet. He didn't say much, he just worked. Sometimes he would stop, watch Tu Sam measuring and taking notes, then ask a single question. Is this okay like this? It's good, she replied with a smile. Can you hang the sign right here for me? They worked together naturally, as if they had been doing this for a long time. No need for assignments, no reminders. When Tu Sam was busy in the kitchen testing recipes, Lee adjusted the lights, wiped the glass, lined the chairs up neatly. When Lee paused, Tu Sam brought out a small piece of cake for him to taste. How about this one? Lee ate slowly, thought for a moment, then said, It's good. It can be sold. Just 2 words, but enough to keep Tu Sam smiling the whole evening. At night, when the shop had gone quiet, they sat on 2 wooden chairs with a box of test cakes between them. Tu Sam opened her notebook and added a few more lines. Vanilla cream cake. Lightly sweet chocolate cake. Make a reasonable amount, don't overdo it. She looked up, her voice a little worried. I don't know if anyone will come on opening day. Lee glanced around the shop, small but warm, and replied calmly, Whether they do or not is okay. What matters is that we're starting. Tu Sam was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. She understood. Opening day wasn't about proving anything big. It was simply opening the door, for the shop and for herself. On the last day before opening, Tu Sam stood for a long time in front of the newly hung signboard. The shop's name appeared simple, unadorned. She touched the edge of the sign, her eyes stinging slightly. I never thought I'd have a place like this, she said softly. Lee stood beside her, not looking at the sign but at her. Because you took it one step at a time. No one handed this to you. That night, when she turned off the shop lights, Tu Sam looked back one more time. She no longer felt impatient or afraid. There was only one clear feeling, peace. Tomorrow the shop would open. No noise. No fanfare. But it was a beginning Tu Sam had been waiting for a very long time. Opening day arrived quietly. The morning sun wasn't harsh. Only a soft light slipped through the glass and touched the freshly cleaned display case. Outside, Tu Sam hung a small handwritten sign. Grand opening today. The letters weren't perfectly even, but they were neat. She stepped back to look, then took a deep breath. There was no music inside the shop, only the warm scent of fresh cake. She adjusted her apron, smoothed her clothes. Her heart beat fast, but not wildly. It was a very thin kind of nervousness, as if touching it might make it shatter. Lee wasn't inside the shop. He stood across the street, beneath an old tree, watching. He wanted her to have this moment entirely to herself. The door opened. The first 10 minutes no one came in. 20 minutes, still no one. Tu Sam placed her hand on the counter. The surface felt cool. She looked outside, then lowered her gaze and told herself, It's okay. Opening the door today already takes courage. The glass door opened softly. A middle-aged woman stepped in, her manner cautious. She looked around, her eyes stopping at the cake display. Is this a new shop, dear? Yes, today is our opening, Tu Sam replied, her voice slightly shaky but clear. May I see the cakes? Tu Sam opened the display and introduced them slowly. No sales pitch, no rush. The woman chose a small slice of vanilla cake and tasted it very carefully. Tu Sam stood across from her, hands lightly clenched. Then the woman smiled. It's not overly sweet. Light. I like it. Tu Sam's throat tightened. She bowed her head quickly. Thank you. Thank you so much. When the door closed behind the woman, Tu Sam stood still for a moment and quickly wiped away her tears. Not from exhaustion, but because for the first time a stranger had acknowledged what she made. Across the street, Lee saw everything. He didn't hear the words, only saw Tu Sam's shoulders tremble slightly. He straightened up. You did it, he thought. By noon, a few more customers came. Not many, but enough for the display to slowly empty. With every slice sold, Tu Sam wrote down a line in her notebook to remember. In the late afternoon, when the shop grew quiet again, the door opened once more. Own walked in. No fuss. No warning. She paused at the entrance for a moment, looking around carefully. Her gaze passed over the display case, the wooden chairs, then settled on Tu Sam standing behind the counter. The shop is lovely, Own said softly. Tu Sam froze for a second, then smiled and bowed her head. I opened today. Own nodded and stepped closer to the display. Let me see the cakes. Tu Sam opened it. Her hands were steadier than in the morning, but her heart beat harder. Owen chose a small slice and sat by the window. She tasted it. Silence. Tu Sam waited, not daring to ask. After a moment, Owen set down her fork. The cake is made carefully, not rushed. Just one sentence, but the way Owen looked at Tu Sam was completely different now, not cautious or evaluative, but acknowledging. You've done well, Owen added slowly. The shop is small, but it's yours. Tu Sam didn't reply right away. She nodded, her eyes moist. Owen stood up, paid in full, then paused at the door. Take it slow. Keep this rhythm. After Owen left, Tu Sam stood quietly. The feeling inside her was no longer fear. It was a very new kind of peace. Lee came in at dusk. How was the first day? Tu Sam looked at him, her smile still full of emotion. Not many customers, but someone praised the cakes. And Owen stopped by. Lee nodded very slightly. That's enough. Outside, the streetlights came on. The shop closed after its first day. Not dazzling, not noisy, but already holding the warmth of a true beginning.
Xin chào mọi người, cảm ơn mọi người đã xem hết video hôm nay của mình. Chúc mọi người có một ngày mới vui vẻ, hạnh phúc và một ngày làm việc tràn đầy năng lượng. Hy vọng rằng những video của mình sẽ mang đến niềm vui cũng như giúp mọi người thư giãn sau một ngày làm việc mệt mỏi. Và hiện tại thì mình đang kể câu chuyện về Tử Sam và Diệu Hân. Nếu mà mọi người yêu thích những câu chuyện về hai cô gái này thì mọi người nhớ like, share, bật chuông thông báo để nhận thông báo khi mình đăng video mới nhất, và cũng như ủng hộ kênh cho mình để mình có động lực làm nhiều video hơn cho mọi người cùng xem. Và nhớ chia sẻ kênh của mình cho bạn bè để mọi người cùng biết đến và ủng hộ cho mình nha. Cảm ơn mọi người đã lắng nghe hết một phút chia sẻ của mình. Hy vọng rằng sẽ được đồng hành và được sự ủng hộ của mọi người. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người ở video tiếp theo nhé.